Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you, Evelina, and nice to see you again, Kat and Robert. Today we'll be talking about trends in data visualization. So the goal is to talk about trends that we've noticed in 2020, whether that's about tools or people that stood out or any other sort of trends. And then quote unquote predictions for 2021. I wouldn't call them really predictions, but thoughts of what you think could happen in 2021. Hopefully, a better year than 2020 overall. It's great to have so much diversity here. 4 countries, 4 continents, many different languages, probably. And yeah, many time zones also. So thanks for, waking up very early, Kat, staying late, Evelina. I appreciate it. And then we also have a lot of diversity in terms of tools that we are using. I know I asked you what tools you're using. We have Flourish, RAWGraphs, Tableau, Figma for design, Excel. We have Adobe Creative Suite. So I think there's a very broad expertise here in terms of tools that we are using. And I think also in terms of style, there's some variation in terms of the styles that we are using. So I'll do a very brief introduction of each of you. And then if you want to say anything else, add more color, more context, feel free. So Kat, I think I first noticed you, I don't know, 10 flies, maybe 2 years ago. I know there was a storytelling with data challenge at one point, and you posted something about, it was the number of animals that are killed to feed Americans. And I know it was a visualization that was simple, but really stood out. And that was, I think, the first time when I noticed you. Yeah, do you want to say a few words about yourself, Kat?
Yeah, I'm based in New Zealand. I have a database company called Rogue Penguin, and I've come from more of an analytics type of background and kind of moved into database that way. So I've been doing database for a good 5 to 10 years, kind of full time on and off. And I just really enjoy database because I think it's a way of helping companies to really use those insights. I think I've been involved in so many projects where insights created, but never actually goes anywhere. So for me, database is just part of the step on the analytics process about how we can really operationalize that insight.
Great. Thank you, Kat. And then Evelina, I think I noticed you on Twitter. Twitter has a large data visualization community, maybe, I don't know, half a year ago or so. I don't know, time flies. I feel like it's hard to quantify time right now. But definitely your minimalistic design, I think, stood out a lot. And after seeing one of your posts, I tried out Figma, which I think is a really nice tool for design. I really like it. So yeah, if you want to say a few more words about yourself, Evelina.
Sure. So thanks for that. Thanks for noticing the minimalistic style. Everyone's been pointing it out to me, so I think I cannot hide it anymore. Same as Kat, I come from an analytical background, so I've been working with data for maybe 7 years and been in love / obsessed with data visualization for the past 2, I think. So I'm pretty set in all that's analytical analysis, data transformation, coding, etc. And I'm learning all there is to know right now about design, because that's not the kind of side that I come from. As you said, I really enjoy creating visualizations that are clear and to the point. Not to say that I don't like the complex visualization, but at least in the environment that I am in, it's this is what I need. So my usual battle, at least at work in a startup where I work at, is to prove to people that aesthetics matter, and that taking the 5 to 10 minutes to just make it look better design-wise can really make a difference.
Great, thank you, Evelina. And then Robert lives in Chile, so that's the 4th country and 4th continent here, which is exciting. So I know Robert from Twitter as well. I feel like everything happens on Twitter. And I think what I've noticed about Robert is that he's very involved in the community and very helpful when it comes to collaborating, to giving feedback, to just helping. I went to him with many questions and he's always been very helpful. So thank you for that, Robert. And if you want to say a few more words about yourself.
I also started out in analytics like Kat, but not with as much bent toward like hard analytics. It was more like moving data around because I worked in supply chain optimization, and that required like getting data really clean for one really big model to run, one big optimization model. And that got me interested in like taking my supply chain knowledge and applying it to data and creating data pipelines. And ultimately, like that all results in like somebody looking at something. And then I got excited about learning about the efficiency of our mind, processing like a visual form and like distilling that into an insight. Because a lot of decisions are made up by our mind just by how it recognizes, like creates form. So I saw an opportunity to optimize that pipeline by learning design, and I haven't stopped trying to like learn a lot of skill sets involved, which means I do a lot of things, but I guess Tableau is my main thing. And then everything adjacent to Tableau is all supportive, and I'm learning as well, which I appreciate everyone who helps me. So it's good to help others, and I think we've all benefited from Twitter. So
Yeah,
that's
I think so. I
happy
think
to connect with
maybe
people
that's
there.
one theme, right?
Yeah, we've all got that in common.
Yeah. All right. So let's get started. Let's talk about 2020. And this can be more of a discussion in terms of trends, and trends can include anything. And maybe they will look different, right? Maybe your perspective from New Zealand versus my perspective from here. You know, we wear different lenses, maybe to a certain degree. I don't know, but yeah, who wants to get started? What's one trend that you noticed in 2020?
I can go. From what I can see, 2020 has been obviously two main data types or sources, COVID and US election. That kind of overruled a lot of what I was seeing down here.
Mm-hmm.
But I also saw this massive split, or a more pronounced split, between the whole exploratory dashboards, so many dashboards, and the more explanatory pieces. And they, for me, they were always kind of split a little bit, but then this year they've just kind of gone boom. I don't know if that's just the information that I'm seeing, but beautiful explanatory pieces, you know, going into the detail around why we need vaccines or how a vaccine works, things like that, versus COVID dashboards with, you know, daily case numbers and things like that just being spit out everywhere. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think I've seen that too from the US. I mean, there were so many dashboards and exploratory visualizations. I guess for me, like one question that was raised and is still raised is the data literacy, because you make all the data available to everyone, but then do people know how to use it? Like, I feel like that's maybe a concern to a certain extent. I don't know if a trend necessarily, but maybe, yeah, something to consider.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Building on what you guys just said, I think to me 2020, I don't know if this is really a trend, but to me it was the year that data viz went mainstream. I know some people say it was 2019, but it was definitely the year where everyone realized that in many cases without data visualization you're just going to get nowhere. So of course it's another question whether we're doing it right. So that's where data literacy and learning design and doing the user research comes in. And even for me personally, at the beginning of the year, it really sort of struck me how important it is and how many decisions you need to make when you want to report data. Remember when the first visualizations came out on COVID at the beginning of the year, no one really knew much about it, and everyone did it wrong in a way, not necessarily on purpose or anything, but just because they didn't know better. I remember my family in Lithuania, where I'm from, sending me maps and other stuff that was just really, it looked like it was meant to scare people. I'm sure it wasn't, but it was designed in such a way that it meant to scare people. And that's when I sort of personally decided that as data analysts and as data visualization professionals, it's sort of our job to make sure this is done better. So by making it ourselves, showing the example, doing trainings and talking about data literacy all over the place if we can.
Yeah. What
I
about
was
you,
going to
Robert?
say something similar in that, like, I saw a lot of demand for data viz like we've never seen before. Everyone's like, we have to, like, now data viz matters. Like, look at all the data visualization professionals like doing great work. We got a lot of attention and maybe a little bit of hype. And I saw like plenty of people voicing their concerns, like, I'm stepping out of visualizing this information because I'm not a professional, right? Like, I'm not I don't even know, like immunologist or whatever. There's a lot of stuff there that we don't know about. So reporting on it, especially like visually, could misinform, and that's important. But that provided a gap for some people to step in and fill it with cool, flashy visualizations, which got a lot of excitement. And that it's like, who says like what's okay to be like put out there? Like, there's a process that we didn't shortcut, but we sped up for the vaccines. It's like, all right, how do we like formalize the process of distributing like high quality visualization so that we aren't producing like fake news and misinforming people? Because data visualization, like, it is information. It can inform, it can misinform. So yeah, saw a lot of hype about data viz. That's awesome. I took it as an excuse to like step back because it's not my, like, that subject's not my space. So I'm just gonna learn stuff and hope other professionals like step up and do their thing. So yeah, very active year.
Yeah,
Funny you say that, because I stepped back too. I didn't want to visualize that particular data, and I found that a lot of people who were already in the industry, in the data viz industry, tended to do the same thing, and that absolutely left room for other people to step in, and whether they're scientists or whatever their background, new people were visualizing this information.
Yeah, I felt the same. I did not want to touch the data in any way, for sure. But I remember it was a few months ago on Twitter. At one point, someone posted 2 maps from the government of Georgia. There were like 2 maps created in Tableau, and the assumption in the tweets somewhat stated was that there was supposed to be a comparison, and that the way the map was encoding the data was misleading. And I remember that a ton of people, right? A ton of people, like known people in data visualization, jumped in criticizing the government of Georgia. And it lasted, I think it was over the weekend, it lasted for like 12, 18 hours till someone stepped in and said, hey, did you actually check the data source? And no one had checked it. So I think there were many situations. This was maybe a bit extreme, but I think that there were many situations in which people draw conclusions very quickly, like without actually going and checking. Maybe it's also because of the topic, gets people excited and very opinionated. But I thought it was an interesting, not necessarily trend, but something that stood out for me.
We know that numbers give credibility to things, and a number coupled to a visual is even more credibility, and it's more strength behind the number. Like, you can have a number outside of the context, then you put it in the context of a visual and you have like information, and then people go do things with that. So somebody might have a good message and they put it up, and maybe if maybe they weren't aware of how it could be taken, mistaken, and maybe that's why some of us were like a little hesitant to partake. We're just hesitant.
I was just gonna say that I do think there's another side of this, because contrary to all of you, at the beginning of COVID, I did create a few visualizations. I didn't put them in a newspaper or anything, but just had them on Tableau Public actually. And whilst I did that, my main reasoning was to just provide people around me with something that it doesn't look like millions of people are dying every day, because at the moment it wasn't the case. The reason I'm mentioning it is because it was the time when I learned the most about ethics and accessibility, and I had never learned this much about maps, how bubbles or chloropleth maps can influence your understanding. Like when I really did a lot of research and read a lot of articles, and it opened my eyes to a lot of things. And after that, I stopped because it got really overwhelming with data being updated every day and coming from all sorts of sources. So it wasn't manageable. But I do think it echoes another trend from 2020, which is all the discussions that we're now having about ethics and accessibility. I think they started at least partly, also including Black Lives Matters and that kind of things matter. But also COVID forced us to talk more about not only how to visualize data, but how to do it ethically, how to make sure everyone is included and everyone's understanding your message. And this will probably be a trend that will keep on trending for many years, I hope.
Yeah, that's right. I noticed that any type of post, article, discussion about accessibility tends to get a lot of eyeballs and engagement right now, which definitely made me think that that's a growing topic currently. And I mean, it's great that it's growing. I think there was a big gap when it came to discussions, or there still is, I think, a gap when it comes to discussions about accessibility.
Something Evelina said that made me think, it's like you were talking about putting something on Tableau Public, and made me think of like other spaces where people were sharing things that might have become popular. And one of the most popular things shared in 2020 was like tables of data. Like tables were, I don't know if they were recognized as data visualization, but yes, that is data visualization. And with Tableau Public, with Tableau, where our ability to make like great tables is somewhat limited, or at least strained. And with a table, you've got text there, and you've got the bar to interpret that is literacy. Although it is data, it's just not encoded in a form other, like outside of your language. So I don't know if like tables, I don't think we're a trend, but like tables and text, like all of the auxiliary components of visualization, as you were talking about accessibility, those became so much more crucial. You have to explain your pixels better. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, there was a book published by, correct me if I'm wrong, I think his name is Richard Brath, the book that's called Visualizing with Text. I haven't read it yet, but there's been quite some hype around it, at least by the end of the year. So I think I agree with you that it's a trend that is starting at maybe a smaller trend compared to everything else, but I actually really like it because in the business setting, users are always going to ask you for tables. Whatever you try to do, they want to have a table somewhere just in case they need to check all of the details. If you can make them look better and if they're easily accessible, then it's really an advantage for you.
So talking about the business world and the questions or the needs in the business world, have you noticed any trends, whether it's for the company that you work with or clients, any questions or needs that maybe were different or were trending in a different direction in 2020? Is
that a question for me?
For everyone.
Yeah. I can start. I have one thing. I think I've experienced that a lot of people are seeking skills in design. How should I explain this well? So in the business setting, often people are trained on the tools and they can create dashboards, but they lack skills in design. At least that's what some people have reached out to me about, and what I've been helping companies do when I do consulting, because they saw some of my posts on LinkedIn and Twitter, and they reached out to me saying, it just looks so clear and aesthetically pleasing. Could you help us go to that direction, because we have all sorts of other expertise except that one.
Yeah, I'd second that as well. I work with a lot of government agencies, and they're looking for that communications arm for the analytics team, and whether that involves design skills or comm skills, writing skills. as well as this whole data literacy package. So, how you still have to be able to understand analytics and the outputs and, the stats that goes into creating the output and what that means, but you also have to be able to communicate that effectively. And it's very hard to find just in one person. So some of them are actually hiring a couple of different skills to make up that whole communications. So whether it's a designer teamed with a comms person who has a bit of data knowledge, or what that combination is. But that's what quite a lot of my clients are looking for at the moment.
Are you able to do it all for them, or do you help them construct the team?
Yeah. So that's what I'm helping them with, but I think they're looking for something in-house. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't rely on a consultant for that kind of thing if it's a full-time role. And I can't do that full-time for one client either. So people are realizing how important this is and how much time goes into it, and wanting someone to work with their team full-time.
So when you talked about, I don't even know if you said the word copy, but it made me think of microcopy. Like I've seen some articles posted about the importance of microcopy. So like instead of a button that says like submit, you could have a button that says like checkout, or like an annotation that is friendly. And I work with SaaS companies often. These are like startups with a personality. So the microcopy has to be instructive, but either serious, trustworthy, light, something. It speaks to their personality, like that. Those characters are designed and placed in the font matters. So I was, but coming into this talk, I didn't want to suggest that I was seeing a trend toward design because I felt like it, but I didn't know if it was just my like SaaS world. But Kat saying she's working with governments who are also looking for that. I'm like, oh, okay, there is something there, because maybe we just have so many apps on our phone, and the good ones, like they're designed well, they look nice, so we expect more of what we see on screens. We expect forms that
it's an example I use all the time. Compared to what you see on your screens, you just can't allow yourselves to have dashboards that are not intuitive.
Yeah, I think that I noticed with my clients, or when I did public trainings, for one, data storytelling. It seems that everyone wants data storytelling. I would say not everyone really understands what goes into data storytelling or what data storytelling truly is. I think that sometimes people even use it interchangeably with data visualization, or don't really understand where you draw the line between one and the other. But they all want it, which is interesting. I mean, I definitely see a need for it, but there seems that everyone has this idea top of mind that they need it. And then the second one, I think people start questioning whether they are using the right charts, which is great. Part of it is because these interesting charts around them, and they are still doing pie charts and donut charts and bar charts, and they are wondering at this point, okay, should we use something else?
I can speak to that. I worked for a startup this year who was in I guess like med tech. It's kind of like virtual doctors. So this is great during COVID. Like you don't have to go to the doctor's office, and you just do it virtually, set up appointments. There's a term for it and I forget it. But I came in and I was doing Tableau work, and I try to make great designs, but in this company, the team I was working with, they're very good with the numbers, very analytical. And I would take their numbers and I would transform them into forms that might not be a chart, but it's a form that will draw your eye to certain information based on the need of the business. And that like pause for them to figure it out was enough of a pause to make them like uneasy about the direction of the design. So the design was not your conventional like bar chart or line chart or histogram or like anything. Even the tables had nuances that were like more information because I don't know, I was brought in through the design team and they wanted to up their design game. They wanted things to feel good, but sometimes there's like a bit of a jump to like get in there and learn a new form. And when you're with a fast growing startup in the boom of COVID, it is hard to get people to like pause for a minute to embrace that. And I eventually told them like, this is not like, I'm not what you need. Let's like take it back and just like make things that are more basic. And once you have something solid, design the shit out of that. Because this visual form, it's nice, people like it, but it's not your like quick hit, like I don't know, message that everybody understands. It's very unique to your business problem, and it speaks to that. So it was an interesting experience that I had this year. Too designy.
It comes down to that one of the big rules of data viz though, right? You know, design for your audience. And if your audience just wants tables, then give them tables.
Yeah, that is not what I like to do. So
when people ask me for a table, I usually try to argue and suggest them many other options before I really end up with a table if I have to.
Yeah, but some of us like maybe we could say like somebody else can do tables for you. Don't talk to me to do tables. Yeah.
So what about tools? Have you noticed any trends when it comes to new tools, or maybe the use of certain tools more than they used to be used?
In my say, not really, because my clients are normally quite big organizations. It takes a long time for them to change tools, and so we're still talking about, you know, the use of Excel, Power BI, Tableau, those kind of, or even R if you're looking at stats packages, you know, those kind of tools that have been around for a while and will probably continue to be around for a while.
I feel like Figma finally got like the Tableau community has like started to notice it more than in past years, because I've been working with Figma for like going on 3 years now. And I was like, nobody knows about this thing. Like, what is wrong with Figma? Like, why are people not using this? So I made a course and I was like, we got to use this thing. Like, why don't you know about Figma? It's not scary. People are still making stuff in PowerPoint. Like, please don't. Like, please don't. Like, PowerPoints, it does PowerPoints. Make your custom shapes in Figma. Like, make your dashboard layouts in Figma. So I feel like the Tableau community has like started to like come around to it and notice it. So that's one thing. That's one notable thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I noticed that as well, especially in the last few months. I would say there's been a lot of discussion about Figma and people mentioning that they are using it and they are happy with it. It seems to be definitely a tool that's been growing in the data visualization community.
Definitely agree with that as well. And I kind of want to say that all tools are getting better every year, some of them quicker than others. So on top of the usual business intelligence tools like Power BI and Tableau, who improve all the time, for custom visualizations, for cases, say like if the management in my company, they have a very important board or client meeting and they would do a presentation that's in Google Slides, but I would make the charts really custom, so simple and effective, but really custom, then I would go for one of the tools that allow me to download charts as SVGs and then bring them in Figma or Affinity Designer to just move around the legend or the colors the way I want to. So for that, I use Flourish and RAWGraphs, and I've seen a lot of improvements in both of those. They're based, unless I'm mixing stuff up, but I'm pretty sure that they're both based on D3GS. And and especially Flourish now, you can do so many things in there. It's used by a lot of journalists, so you can also just embed the interactive versions on your websites or anywhere you need to embed them. But I use them to download my charts as SVGs, and most of the time I don't even do anything really crazy. I just want the legend to be that exactly precise spot, or make the bars a little rounded or something like that, and I can do it very quickly.
Yeah, I think talking about Flourish, one type of chart that was discussed a lot was the bar chart race.
Yeah.
It was like loved and hated at the same time.
I think Flourish got banned from the Reddit space.
Oh, really?
How is it called? Data is beautiful, I think, on Reddit.
Yeah,
There was something like that because of the bar chart race thing, because everyone was so fed up with it.
All right, and let's change gears and think about the future, 2021. So what do you think will happen or is likely to happen in 2021 from a data visualization perspective?
I feel like everybody's been humbled in their ability to predict the future.
No
one
one
wants to make
knows.
any predictions whatsoever.
Given on the first week of 2021, I'm like, no one knows.
Now, one thing that I was thinking about is VR. I know someone who has a VR startup, and it seems like it's a market that's growing very fast in many different industries. Then I was saying that, something between VR and data visualization could be a potential trend. I don't know, but there's definitely an industry that could be a good fit for data visualization.
I do wonder how that's going to work, because I've been to conferences years ago where they were playing around with this kind of technology, and the use case that they showed off with it was kind of like you go into a VR environment and then you play around with the dashboard. And for me, that's just making something that's really easy even harder. So it'll be interesting to see if they can come up with a good use case for data viz in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
Maybe it could help people understand data visualizations better. While you guys were talking, I was thinking of Hans Rosling, that I'm sure all of you know. And he was famous for one of those videos where he sort of steps into the chart and explains, so this is the bubble, this is the line of 70, and it goes all the way up to here. And this region means this, and this, in this area, you have nothing. So that's because all of the countries that have a high life expectancy, they're also higher income, etc. So maybe for those kind of use cases could be fun.
Like when I was in San Francisco, people were starting to mess with AR, data viz, and I got to see some stuff, and that was cool. And Shirley Wu has done some things with it this year. It was more like 3D than maybe VR. But it's a whole, it's a nut, like we design, unless we're 3D data visualization designers, we design 2D planes. If you're designing space, that's another dimension that you have to experience. So one of the examples that I saw that was kind of mind-blowing, and it's not an insight in the same way that like a hard number is, but someone took like Tolkien's like books and had it just one long flowing stream of text, and you're like in this black space and you look down and you see all the text going down, like how, like, and then you can fly, like you can float through the text, and it's just, you get to see the volume of work, you get to experience it. So yeah, I get the same way that like VR to go explore coral reefs that have been devastated is. It's like, oh, that's an experience that you're going to have about this reef that you might not have been able to visit, and now you know some things about it. So it's gonna be a unique use case, kind of that Kat's point, like if experiencing data in this setting makes the right impact on you, if it's required, then cool, it might be worth the development. But other than that, like outside of that, it's a novelty.
Yeah, I do have a friend. She is a professor of physics, and she works primarily with data from NASA, which is, I think, at least from my perspective, I don't work in that area nor with that data, but I think it's more abstract because, I mean, it's not something that you see around you. But they do create 3D charts, and they are actually working on developing a lab, a VR lab. I don't know if at one point, the charts will be included in what they are doing in the lab, but I think it would be a good fit because in a way, those charts will be, kind of brought to life in a different way. I think the data would become more tangible that way. And yeah, I mean, 3D visualizations are already created with that data. So it's just like the next step forward, I think.
Maybe it could also work for all of those scientific visualizations that are more spatial, kind of more 3D, the kind of thing I personally don't really do. I'm thinking about it because I was just reading it in a book earlier and looking at all of those examples and telling myself, I've never seen this in my life, even though I look at data visualizations all the time. Yeah. So maybe for some of those, it could be helpful to explain arteries and cancer and stuff like that. It goes on inside your body.
Yeah, I agree. One time when my friend was showing me the visualizations that her students were creating, I was like, I've never seen such a visualization in my life. Like, I wouldn't even know how to call it because, it was 3-dimensional. So it was kind of like rotating and showing you different angles of the data. It was really interesting. It was also very unique for me since I haven't had really any exposure to 3D visualization, especially with space data.
Yeah, you could argue with the VR thing. If there's an object that is best represented in more dimensions than we have to work with in 2D, what our skills allow us to do well is simplify things into a form that gives you an answer. But with arteries, it's like I've seen people take like arteries and then like flatten them and like highlight areas of the arteries that are problematic, where there's a lot of blood pressure or something like that. But that's not as, maybe because it's been flattened, it's been deformed. And then you have to like use knowledge that you hopefully have as a surgeon, doctor, whatever, to reform it and know that like this is actually the artery that's trying to be portrayed. So if VR just allowed you to like swoop into someone's, I don't know, veins, then you don't have to deform things and therefore like decode as much, which is more intuitive. It's more straightforward.
Yeah.
If that becomes mainstream in the future, we're going to need a whole other skill set to be able to do 3D data visualizations.
That's true. Any other thoughts about 2021 and about what this year will bring?
So
sorry.
Go ahead, Kat. No, you haven't spoken in a while.
What I'm seeing a little bit in 2020, but I think is going to be more and more in 2021, is how do we take all these complex algorithms that we are creating and make them understandable. So, algorithm communication, transparency, I think that's going to really play a big part in the future because, algorithms control so much of how we make decisions these days, but people are just kind of waking up to the fact that they don't really understand them, general public. And so how do we communicate this to someone who is not as data literate as someone working in an analytics team in a way that they're going to be comfortable with decisions being made about their lives? And I think the role of data viz and data communication is going to be really, really important.
So we'll be needed more and more, right? Which is good. Any other thoughts about trends for this year?
So I feel like development has become more accessible. Like you got Flourish and RAWGraphs, and that's good. But even within like D3, like React's gained a ton of popularity. Now React has a library for D3, so you have these abstractions. Tailwind CSS doesn't require you to actually write CSS. You just like state the classes, and then it creates new forms, design systems while they haven't like gotten great popularity. There have been like Storybook is a place to host design systems and pull components from. Something like Framer X is kind of like Figma, but you're writing React like you design and then you pull your React component to like pop into your code base, and you can actually sync the two. So I find like that bridge to like take something that I'm making and like actually replace pieces of it with code. There are not as many steps. Like there's a lot of abstraction that's been created that developers get to leverage now. And there's so many people that are doing it, sharing how they're doing it. So there's support, tutorials, and everybody making online courses. So I'm like interested to see how that goes next year, because coding has never been like more accessible to people.
I do wonder if it will be the case for learning data visualization overall. So all of the skills included, whether you want to code it, whether you need to include graphic design basics in the online class you're making, especially now with COVID. More and more people are just learning online, even though it looks like in the data visualization community, it's kind of always been the case, at least for most people, because they come from very different fields. It does feel like the communities are getting bigger and stronger, and the data visualization society is helping as well. Tableau community has always been very tight and very nice, but even in D3 with Observable now and the Outlier conference that is coming, people have this need to get together and share work and experience and learn together, since they all sort of had to be apart. So I do think that this will continue to grow in 2021.
And I have to say it because we haven't talked about it yet, but like our new air or water or environment, like it's virtual. Like we're all over the place, and like virtual communities, like the ability, like I'm in Chile and I felt like, oh, I need to connect with my local community. Yes, I do. But the weirdness or awkwardness of connecting with people wherever the heck they are doesn't feel as odd now. Like I got on a Zoom call with someone who was in London and I had no idea they were going to be in London the other day. And it's just like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Any other thoughts for 2021?
I'm personally quite looking forward to it. I think it's not really a thought, just a note that I think data visualization professionals will keep getting better, and new people will enter the field now that it's more mainstream, and I'm quite looking forward to that.
Thank you so much. I think I've learned a lot, and I think people watching this will learn a lot as well.
Thanks for organizing.
Thanks for
Thanks for having me.
Take care, and have a good day or a good evening there. Take care. Bye.
Bye.